You're listening to Music Tectonics.
Welcome back to Music Tectonics, where we go beneath the surface of music and tech, where we hop from New York to Chicago, to Nashville, to Toronto, to London, to Montreal, to Los Angeles, looking for music tech geeks and champions, where we hold meetups and panels and roundtables from South by Southwest to Music Biz, from DIY musician to NAMM, and now we have our very own conference. And one of the great things about having a podcast alongside the conference is we have year-round conversations about the interesting stuff happening in music tech and some of the coolest thinkers, leaders, like I said, music tech geeks and champions and folks from out there in the field who are doing great stuff. And today I'm excited because we've got one of our partners from Music Tectonics, Scott Fetters, with us. He's the director at 2112 Creative Industries Incubator in Chicago and the founder of the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship. Hey, Scott, how you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I was trying to remember where we first met, and I think I feel like I walked up to you at a conference. Is that true?
I was trying to think the same thing, and I don't know. I know we've known each other and worked together for a long time now. I remember having you up maybe 5 years ago. I think it was at least 5 years ago for a PR workshop when we were first getting launched.
Yeah, I love that. When you get to 2112, you see these warehouses, it's this warehouse district. You kind of park in the back and you walk in and all of a sudden you see there's like this maze of amazing musical and creative industry stuff going on. Why don't you give us a quick background on 2112 and also the recent launch of the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship for anyone who doesn't know?
Sure. So yeah, the concept is constantly growing and evolving. What started as a 92-room band rehearsal facility about 8 years ago has quickly grown into 160,000 square foot creative ecosystem that now houses an additional 32 music production studios, 6 recording studios, multiple live event production companies, theater, 7,000 square foot film and video production facility, and 2112 is the business incubator located inside of all of that, focused on initially music and then expanded into film, video, sports, fashion, immersive, general creative and supporting industries. We like to say now, throughout the facility, any level of artist, any level of creative aligned business, there's a home for you somewhere, and the resources to help get you to the next level. This February, we spun off. There was a lot that we realized we wanted to do. We have I've had a mighty team of 3 doing all of this, and there was a lot on the educational side, on the workforce development side that we wanted to expand into. And didn't really have the resources internally to do it. So we spun off all of our educational arm into the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship to expand the reach of our programming. We're currently working actually with Brian Pennick, white labeling his platforms, Musician's Desk Reference and Music Career Map, to launch our own e-learning platform and career marketplace. Expanded into general creative industries, 9 industries under the creative umbrella. We're also then launching a workforce development arm to focus on developing talent pipelines for the creative sector. So really between these 3 initiatives, we're looking to create a kind of the global model on how to develop a creative sector for a region that can then be replicated globally.
Oh, is that all?
That was we could fill a whole podcast just with the background, but that's the very abridged version.
Man, and it's a lot to take in. I mean, for me, like when you guys first were getting started in that 5 or 6 years ago, whatever that was, like you already had this these rehearsal studios. There were like 90 plus of them. I remember even then you had a waiting list of several months for more bands that wanted to get in. You had, long-term, monthly, and hourly music rehearsal studios. That's still going, right? That's just one small piece.
That's going, yeah. That's a third of the building now, and that's very active. There's about 500 bands a month that are coming through in those hourly rehearsal rooms. About 1,000 people active in the facility overall on the Fort Knox side, and then about 120 businesses currently within 2112 itself.
Wow. So the rehearsal studio side is still called Fort Knox, and then the business kind of incubator co-working space is 2112. And within somewhere in there, there's also now recording and production studios. You've got a film hangar. And classrooms. You've got another. I know there was like a radio streaming studio in there. Am I missing anything?
No, I mean, there's that's something we always like to say too. I mean, there's a couple hundred doors that you walk past, and you walk through this maze, and it doesn't look too, it's unassuming from the outside, but there's something amazing behind every single one of those doors that you open up.
Yeah, got it. And so the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship, as well as your partnership with Brian Pennick, are kind of like these spin-offs to keep adding building out the stack of possibilities for the creative industries in Chicago. And now you're saying you actually want to build that out so that it becomes a model that can be replicated in other cities.
Exactly.
Wow. Well, there is a lot there. And I guess if somebody's coming for a visit to Chicago, how can they come and find out what's going on there or see what's in action there?
You can always best with how crazy it gets here sometimes to contact us in advance. You can find us on our website, 2112inc.com. Social media, feel free to contact us. My direct contact info is on the website as well. But if you happen to be in the neighborhood and just want to pop by, we're open 8 to 7, Monday through Friday, physically at the front desk. Fort Knox has expanded hours beyond that. Come see us.
Yeah, cool. And I guess I should ask, I mean, we're still in the midst of this extended pandemic. How have you been dealing with that? A, being an in-person venue, physical brick and mortar place, and B, what other opportunities and kind of pivots you guys have been doing as a result of all the social distancing and lockdown and all that stuff in COVID-19.
Yeah, no, it's funny, and I've been here in the office every day since March, kind of holding the fort down. I got obviously very, very quiet for March, April. Started to pick back up slowly. We have all of the the proper procedures in place. Actually, got very lucky. My partner, who runs our film division, had started a company 7 years ago called Sterile Environments, which does an antimicrobial spray for it's one full year of protection on surfaces against mold, bacteria, virus. So he came in immediately, sprayed. We distanced chairs. We did everything. We're actually pretty lucky with the space, with the physical barriers that already existed. We didn't have to do a whole lot. But it was also funny because March was, we were just leading up to, and I look at, really South by being kind of the start of all of this, and that's where I was on the fence up until, the night before, and I was supposed to be down there 9 days. I think I was on 3 panels and just had 9 solid days of meetings, and it was leading into, what we were planning on being our best year ever. And we'd taken that momentum and really shifted it. And we're coming out of this with what looks like is going to be still our best year ever, which with a much stronger focus on media and technology. So our first focus was obviously making sure that our members were taken care of and were adjusting and had the resources and skills and weren't sitting back and just waiting for this to end. So we helped guide members first. Kind of second was focused on some artist relief at the city and state level. Our fiscal sponsor with CCE is Arts Alliance Illinois, and they led the efforts in Illinois on artist relief efforts. So after that, then it was really focused on us and how do we shift and pivot and be successful moving forward. And we took a strong focus on media and technology. So we upgraded. This was already in the works, very very luckily, and a lot with CCE. We'd already planned on going online and virtual and more global. But our main stage, immediately we upgraded. We installed technology for streaming and recording, so we can now anything that we do, no audience or small audience, we can still record, stream, archive everything that happens in the stage, both educational programming and artist performance. We very thankful to Comcast Business came in and sponsored a startup studio that will be launching in the next month or so. That'll be available for free for small businesses throughout Chicago to come in and create audio and video content. We have Shure had sponsored a podcast booth for us. And then the studio that you had mentioned that was in the works, we still can't quite say who's behind it, but it's going to be big, and that's going to launch beta launch in November. So about half of 2112 now is set up for and focused on media content creation, streaming, and then beyond that. One of the co-founders of Media Tech Ventures, who we had been talking to, John Cesaro, ended up moving up to Chicago and is now working out of 2112. So we're working very closely. They have their 12-week more formal curriculum with their incubator collective. So that is now basically come on top of 2112 and the programming that we do. We're sharing resources, sharing mentors, and working together. They have some international initiatives as well that paired very well with what we've done. They're running programs currently in Korea and Colombia, and there were programs that we had similarly are working on with Italy and a few others. So we have now officially joined forces and working together to expand our focus on media technology and content.
That's amazing. So those spaces like the theater that you're talking about, what kind of content is being created there, or do you imagine being created there? I mean, are you talking concerts? You mentioned educational programming. Is it also other formats, disciplines?
Yeah, it's really it's everything. So our main stage, it's 150 seat. You could think of it as a venue. It's where we've traditionally done all of our educational programming. It is now set up through a few partnerships and sponsorships. We have full backline. We can do streaming, and we're just starting to do streaming and recording of full band performances. Typically what we don't do anything public facing, but we do a lot of artist showcases, industry showcases. So that's something that we'll be able to create additional content around. But then we have, small business in general. The focus of the Comcast studio would be not just for the creative sector, but really for small businesses who, now more than ever, need that content to promote themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So there'll be multiple stations set up where they can do, solo presentations, and there'll be a section set up for interviews. There'll be just an audio station set up for voiceover and podcasts and things like that. So really multi-purpose, as universal as possible for creating all of the basic content that small businesses and creatives need.
So this is almost like you took the model of Fort Knox Rehearsal Studios and you're translating it to business and say, okay, so if we're going to provide these little modular spaces for creating content from a small business perspective, what could that look like? And so you've got this soundstage with live streaming and recording, you've got studios, and you've got podcast stations, webinar stations, that kind of thing.
Yep.
Got it. Very cool. And with the pandemic, I mean, a lot of stuff can't happen in person. How are you leveraging the interest in all the stuff that's happening online in terms of the mission of 2112 and Center for Creative Entrepreneurship? How are you guys kind of magnifying your footprint, given there's so much stuff happening all around the country and around the world right now?
Yeah, and I always like to say, I mean, the vision and mission of 2112 was always much larger than our physical space or our brand. It was focused, initially on solving a problem for Chicago on the fragmented industry that we discovered. We're looking now with that in mind, and we have said, we with the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship's educational programming, so we saw a lot of organizations shift to online virtual free events, and said immediately, we don't need to. We've never wanted to go out and compete. It's always collaborate first, fill in gaps second. Only create something if there's a need identified, and don't ever build something that's direct competition of somebody that we could potentially work with. So I think that's something that has been great through COVID. There's a lot of organizations that we have had loose relationships. We've always talked about coming out internationally to conferences and different incubators and innovation hubs and universities. And I think COVID and the switch to virtual has allowed us really to come together and work together and share resources. We were very early on. With COVID, we participated with each group slightly differently, but either through helping with workshops, mentoring, promotion, different ways. We worked with the Next Stage Challenge, with California Music Tech, with Medium Lab, and recently with G Beta Music Tech, with some mentorship initiatives. But I think it's something that's really special, that will last beyond COVID. These relationships that are built, and the opportunity that really we created this for a reason, and I think a lot of times people lose sight of that. And the reason is never about us. It's about helping the industry and helping these startups. And the more that we can work together, the better we're going to do at that.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the Chicago scene that you guys are a part of, that you've been kind of growing, becoming a hub for. Maybe could you kind of like maybe introduce us to some of the music tech companies or other creative industries companies that are in your network?
Sure. Yeah, and there's a lot to be said about Chicago in general. I think it's something that's overlooked sometimes with the number of top tier universities, having DePaul and Northwestern and University of Chicago and others all here, having the investment community here, involved heavily in other industries, having the history of manufacturing. The ad agencies. We have the global music supervisors for Leo Burnett, BBD, DDB, BBDO, McGarry Bowen, and others all here. Just the film and television industry as well. Looking at Cinespace, our partners in the film industry. When we think about us having a massive facility, they're 10 times the size of us. And they, with their next round of expansion, are going to be the largest film production facility in North America. So that's something that we look a lot at, is, our strength is never, as the city of Chicago, I think, is not competing with other music cities necessarily. It's focusing on that cross-industry collaboration, and the fact that we have some of the best music and theater and dance and fashion all here. A lot of it being very B2B as well, and I think that's something that we look at that is kind of manifested in the companies that come out of here. So some of the startups that that we're working with that are in our space that are music specific. Flag Music is working on connecting bands with meeting planners and corporate and social events. Up Next, I know they've been a number of multiple programs and have the backing of capital now. They've been here from the beginning, and through multiple iterations. Their current version is helping artists monetize through fan contests. MDIIO, who will be part of the Tectonics conference, was actually funded to be here by the Canadian government, looking to connect with the advertising agencies that are in Chicago. They have an AI machine learning tool to streamline processes and monetization for sync licensing. We have then some that are more supplemental to the music industry. Voyeur, for example, is working on 3D and VR video content primarily for festivals. Industry Media is starting to grow relatively quickly as well, or an interactive streaming platform, working with emerging artists and filmmakers. Cover has been with us the past year, and they're an AI-based security platform for venues and large-scale events. So you start seeing a lot of these things that are more supplementary and supporting the industry rather than direct music tech traditional startups.
Yeah.
And then there's some of the larger companies that are in Chicago too that I think people don't realize are necessarily Chicago based. That we're working with and connected to. I think I just heard Songfinch got a next round of funding, but then some of the larger companies, Cameo started here. They're having explosive growth right now. Reverb the same. They were acquired by Etsy and have had their strongest quarter in history. This past quarter, Shure is headquartered here. Shure Microphones, NetherRealm in the gaming space, the makers of Mortal Kombat. So there's this unbelievable community here, not just in music but general creative industries.
It's a big city, and I guess maybe historically people are thinking coastal, but there's so many people and so many great innovators there in Chicago. It's interesting how you, by really kind of putting your flag in the ground, 2112, and putting a shingle out there, has really become a magnet and a hub for so much of this interaction. It must be a blast watching these folks come in and meet each other and ultimately do business together, launch partnerships together, things like that. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the interesting things that have spawned, not necessarily because of 2112, but because of people showing up there and finding each other there?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of, and that was always amazing to witness. I think one of my favorite examples, not necessarily the biggest monetarily, but I think just 2 years ago we had a production design firm in house that had bid on. It was a 2-person team that bid on the On Train's summer tour, doing all of their production design, and they were able to, based on the community that was here, put in the full bid for and say, yes, we can do all of that, basically knowing that they had the support around them. So they ended up working with, I think it was 5 different companies internally. They hired, subcontracted with one of our video production companies in house. They had 12 Line Studio, who's graphic designer in house, do all of the custom graphics and lettering. They actually hired my wife, who's working with a separate company in the brand space here to be Virginia for Meet Virginia. They then filmed everything in our hangar. They did all of the projection mapping in our theater. And that I still remember, us going out, and there were about 20 of us that never would have met, outside of 2112, that all came together. We were all at that concert when they came through Chicago, and just that feeling and looking around and knowing that each person had this small part in something that was so much bigger than them individually. But there's a lot of a lot of examples of that type of thing happening in the space, and to smaller degrees and much larger degrees.
It's interesting. You think about those things when there's a pandemic and a lockdown in terms of physical space. We recently had on the podcast Juan Torres from Prison.fm, and he was talking about people pivoting their concerts in Wyoming, where they have drive-in theaters turning into not only drive-in concerts but drive-in rodeos. And I was just commenting that just the fact that they have so much space in Wyoming is a spot for innovation in a way that you couldn't do in another place. And I think of Chicago as, and a lot of the Midwest, as having a different sense of space. I mean, Chicago is a pretty spread out city, and here you landed in this huge warehouse, in this warehouse district that's allowed you to just keep building on. Whereas if you had been in a very dense city where there wasn't space like that, or spaces at such an expensive premium, you couldn't have really quite kind of built it out like that. But it's interesting to think about the physical space and its relationship to this type of networking and getting business done.
Yeah, no, and we got very lucky, and that was very candidly not part of the plan at the beginning with Fort Knox, and that was before I got involved as well. When they came and they were looking at other spaces that were just 30,000-40,000 square feet, and they ended up leasing a third of this just massive warehouse. That used to be the old Zenith TV factory in the 40s, and didn't really have a plan beyond that rehearsal space. And it is, that additional space has allowed us to, very organically and authentically grow based on the feedback that we've gotten. And it seems like there's always one more little piece that we can expand into. And we're all one story right now. And then we look at what happens next. Do we start building up? Do we start looking at other spaces? But yeah, no, that's definitely been a huge part of our success is the space, and being just on the outskirts of town, right in between, incredibly accessible, right off of the highway and public transportation, but far enough outside of downtown where real estate makes sense to where we can make it affordable for startups to be here as well.
Yeah. I mean, I actually, when we were hired by CD Baby to help them launch their DIY musician conference 5-6 years ago, starting in Chicago, because we didn't want to, overlap with events that were already happening in New York and Nashville and so forth. It was such a great opportunity for us to connect with the music industry and the creative industries just right out of the gate, and to be able to do some meetups and events at your space, and also just be tapped into this network that you guys had. So I definitely experienced the benefits of what it's been like for you guys to put a flag in the ground and build this network and so forth. And it's cool. I think that a lot of the folks that get involved with 2112 see that collaborative spirit that you just bring to the table in all your activities. I'm curious, before we wrap up here, what are some trends from your vantage point that you're keeping an eye on, whether it's in music tech or the creative industries? What are some things that you're interested in seeing as we move into the Music Tectonics Conference, which is coming up a week from when this podcast is published? What are some of the topics that you're thinking about?
It's interesting because we try to dabble in a little bit of everything, dip our toes and see if things make sense, and really just have a pulse on kind of everything that's happening in the trends. And that's, a big part of why we want to be involved with Tectonics as well, to learn about things that we don't know or aren't expecting. As far as Chicago in particular, and what we're working on, I think there's a big focus on B2B immersive technology. That it's something that we've been talking for a long time in Chicago, and there's a lot of more consumer-based, AR, VR concepts that are out there on the coast. But I think Chicago itself is looking to kind of plant that flag as the space for B2B immersive. Also sync licensing again with the ad agencies that are here, innovation in sync, in tracking, in metrics and metadata, in protecting your work, is something that we're always very interested in. But no, we're again very, very excited to just to be a part of everything. I think that's what's been great about being part of all of these different organizations and hubs, and all us working together is we just kind of have that constant pulse on what's happening, what's new.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting as you talk to think a little bit about that kind of industrial history of Chicago that led to this strong advertising presence, which led to a strong film and TV presence, which seems relevant to the immersive stuff as well. And it's great that you've set us up with Justin Gray from MDIIO, the sync tech company you were talking about, that's going to be on our sync tools panel at the conference. I think we should also mention that we're going to collaborate on a kickoff event. October 26th, we're going to be hosting an opening party that's in a virtual world. It's not, you don't need a headset for it, but you do have to download special software. Those of you who have badges should have already gotten a notification about this, that you're going to download Deggy World, which is a virtual venue where you get to customize your avatar and walk around this animated interactive space. There's a beach, there's a gallery, there's performance stages and so forth, but your audio is on, so you can actually talk to these avatars. So that's for our party on October 26th. But why don't you tell everyone about the event that we're collaborating on as well as a presentation?
I was going to say, in the end of October, you will definitely find me on the beach. There, but,
not the Lake Michigan beach, I suppose.
No, the virtual. I'll turn the heat up here. But yeah, no, we're excited. We have the announcement will come out very soon as far as the specifics that will be able to be found on the platform and through Tectonics communication. But we are excited to be able to host the new CEO of Reverb, who has taken over with their acquisition by Etsy, whose focus really is on expanding the reach and expansion into the global market. So he'll be talking about the history of Reverb from, they started as a small brick and mortar space on the north side of Chicago into the global leader in resale of equipment. And
they still have the guitar store, right? And the drum store.
They do. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That guitar store is something else. It's like a museum. You walk in and they're just beautiful historic guitars, just displayed like a museum, except you can pick them up and play them and buy them. Right.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. It's an amazing story. And so that information will be coming out very soon. But yeah, we're excited to partner for part of the kickoff.
Yeah. So go to musictectonics.com to get more info about all of our events, including the conversation with the CEO of Reverb and the opening party and the virtual event and so much more. Scott, thanks so much for supporting the conference, coming out for it, and for everything that you've done for the music space, the music tech space, creative industries. You're so great about that collaborative spirit, not only in Chicago, but we all see you at these music industry events, and you just emit a positivity. And I'm so glad we get a chance to work together on stuff.
Yeah, no, thank you. And that was something I wanted to mention as well. With a lot of people struggling, through COVID. I know you're doing a lot to feature us, but I'd love to give you the shout out too, that with everything that you've done with the Tectonics platform, with the podcasts, everything that you're doing to continue to bring people together and promote is appreciated on our end as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott. So come out and see Scott Fetters at Music Tectonics. Scott, we'll see you in just a week at the conference.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
All right, sounds great. And thanks for listening to the podcast. Obviously, the Music Tectonics Conference is what we're focused on right now because it's happening just a week away from the first publishing of this podcast. Go to musictectonics.com, sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to our podcast, and come be part of the experience. We're working extremely hard not only to bring these great thought leaders and interesting, successful entrepreneurs, people like the CEO of Reverb, people like Scott Cohen, the Chief Innovation Officer from Warner Music Group, representatives from TikTok and Instagram and Triller, lots of amazing companies that are really changing how the business of music is done through technology and innovation. But we're also working really hard to create the opportunity for you to do networking via our platform. You can do one-to-one video chat with anybody at the conference. You can do speed networking where you get introduced to somebody randomly for 3 minutes and then you move on to the next person. So it's going to be a blast. Make sure to come to Music Tectonics October 26th through 28th. Thanks for listening.
You're listening to Music Tectonics.